Good morning, gentlemen. Season 4 kickoff episode, pre-draft, off season's in full effect right now. How we doing, gentlemen?
Good, man.
Wow, that was really delayed. You guys kill me with that. Uh,
Hey, some things never change, man.
It's been a busy off season thus far. Am I wrong? You look at, all that's been going on. It's been really hectic. We've been out for a long time. It's been almost a month and a half. So how you guys been doing? What's up, Keith? How are you?
Oh man. Yeah, the I think the off season got a little crazy. I mean, I all the movement that happened, especially when we got to the quote unquote legal tampering period, and then all that news started breaking down. It's like, whoa, this is ridiculous.
All right. So what's the most shocking move for you so far? NFC, AFC, regardless. What do you think is the biggest move?
I don't know. I mean, just if I'm gonna say, I mean, for my team, the biggest shocker to me was getting Josh Jacobs and then us releasing Aaron Jones. I mean, I get it because he went a little younger, but I mean, is Josh Jacobs that much better than Aaron Jones?
I mean, cost-wise, no.
Exactly. It just, to me, it didn't make sense besides getting younger. So,
what? I mean, that was a move that confused me more than anything. What about Chicago? You got them finally giving you what they're going to do in the draft. That they have to go quarterback now, right? They have to make that selection.
Finally talking about a relevant team. Excellent.
Oh my God, here we go.
I mean, what are your thoughts on it, Andy? I mean,
So it's kind of interesting. You mentioned the fact that if by chance they don't draft Caleb, they go with a different route. Everybody, of course, and I'm sure you've probably seen the little memes and all this stuff on Facebook and everything else. Hey, we're setting it up fantastic for Bajent, which is kind of interesting. But they have taken Caleb Williams out to dinner here in Chicago. They've taken him out to dinner in California. The Bears have. So I probably tend to think they might end up going that way, which is, I guess, okay-ish. If he comes out and throws, first game, 4 touchdowns, 350 yards, fantastic. But we'll see how that goes because the Bears still need some help, especially on the offensive line. Defense always can use a little sprucing up, things of that nature. So, and the Bears have definitely been busy.
What?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
I think I think it's all but assured the Bears are taking Caleb Williams. When you look at all the media postings about what's going on, I don't think Caleb Williams is doing any more visits besides Chicago, and I really think it's a solidified deal. I mean, you kind of just read the tea leaves on that. I would be literally shocked to see they go a different direction than that. But I guess the question of the day is what they do with their number 9 pick, and being that they're in that prime position still because there's going to be a team that's going to trade up to get one of the quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. So then all that draft stock starts to fall down. Do they stick at number 9 and get a very high quality person, or do they say, you know what, let's trade this, let's get some more draft capital and move on?
So I can see both scenarios. Oh, go ahead.
Well, let me ask you this: what is a trade that you would not take for that first overall pick? I mean, what if someone comes to the Bears and like, hey, we'll give you the first this year, or they got 2 firsts this year, they'll give you a first next year and a third this year?
So I think
the Bears entertain.
Yeah, I think they were actually asking a little bit too much for the number 1 pick this year, and then people I think were kind of shying away a little bit because, of course, you had the Panthers situation with their quarterback and things of that nature. And that's understandable. But then when you have, of course, let's just use Caleb Williams as the example, when he was asking, allegedly, 97% of a team, and he wants, over $1 trillion worth of signing bonus and crazy
Oh,
stuff like that. People were actually like, "Whoa, I don't know, no," because he comes into the of course combine. I'm not going to do any throwing. I'm not going to do any running. I'm not going to do any medical. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. And then people are who are like on the fence are like, "Okay, we're out." And so I think when it kind of came down to it, the Bears were asking too much for a potential player who, again, could be spectacular, could be a Hall of Famer in the future, or could be an absolute and utter bust. At this point, you just don't know. Now, as far as your question with like what do they do with number 9, I could definitely see two different scenarios. One is they could conceivably trade, get one, maybe up to 3 different draft picks and maybe a player or two. I can definitely see being able to get at least one first rounder this year and maybe 2 or 3 players that they definitely need, which would include like a rusher, edge rush, maybe another offensive lineman or two, or even potentially another receiver. Now,
So what helps the Bears though is how deep this draft is at multiple positions. It's deep at wide receiver. It's deep at offensive line. It's deep at the edge. And you got teams that have those needs, but do the Bears risk missing out on something they need to take that trade?
so I think CBS Sports and maybe a couple of others have actually, with their mock drafts, I think have the Bears picking an offensive lineman with their number 9 pick, and I can understand that. And I think one of the names I've heard is Joe Alt, tackle from Notre Dame, big massive guy, good hands, decent feet. But that's really what the Bears need is a good offensive tackle, in particular on the left side. But you can probably swing your right over to your left and etc. So the Bears actually bolstering their offensive line, and we were talking about this last year. You have an offensive line that was sporadic. They were trying to work themselves into a cohesive unit. Cool. It didn't necessarily happen as fast as you would like. Okay. But the Bears have now been able to get certain parts to where they've actually been able to fill or bolster certain areas. Cool. And so if it is Caleb Williams, which, you have a quarterback who would customarily go number 1 to the worst possible team, walking into a situation where you actually have a number 1, number 2, legitimate number 1, number 2 wide receiver. You have at least 2 quality tight ends. You got a running back that does pretty darn good, and now you got an offensive line that's starting to kind of do this kind of thing, and a defense that's actually better than mediocre, on the plus side of mediocre. So you're coming into actually a really good situation for any quarterback, let alone the number 1 pick. So again, I can see both scenarios happening: trading number 9 or going with an actual draft pick. And in this particular case, I can definitely see them going with an offensive lineman on number 9. So.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll touch on my team's moves this year. I mean, they really didn't do much. I mean, they re-signed Mike Evans. Great. I mean, that's awesome. But they got Baker back. So it's basically the same team, right? And then they signed Randy Gregory, which is it a good signing? Is it not a good signing? I think it's a depth signing. But everyone's down on the Bucs for what they did. But I think they had a good preseason so far, or offseason so far going into the draft. They've addressed a lot of needs. Their big needs are edge, offensive tackle, or offensive guard, center, interior line on offense, and corner. I mean, they lose Carlton Davis. That's one of the moves that shocked me. The biggest move the Bucs made that shocked me was not being more active pre-draft. Like they haven't traded anything away other than Carlton Davis, and that was really seen. So that's pretty much it. That's the only thing I really didn't see coming, is they haven't done anything other than that. But nothing really shocked me with Tampa. My biggest move that shocked me is the whole Stephon Diggs. What do you guys think of that? I mean, I think that trade is kind of puts a ding on Diggs, doesn't it? Makes him look worse than he is.
So, interesting part about that, real quick. Sorry, I'll give it just be a moment. So, I don't know if Buffalo's just cleaning house, if by chance there's just some sort of a bad blood type of thing, because you have both UCF, go Knights. You have both Gabe Davis, who was actually out of there. He went to, of course, Jacksonville. Now Stephon Diggs is out of there. He's, of course, going to an absolute another powerhouse. So really, what's going on in the locker room in Buffalo? Why is everybody jumping ship? Your quarterback, of course, has shown that he can win games, not necessarily the big games, whatever the case is. But is there some sort of like a strife or something like that within that type of hierarchy that's making people want to leave? And Stephon Diggs, has always been a little bit on the prima donna if you don't give me the ball,
for sure.
Sure. I mean, you don't give me the ball 10 times, 20 times a game, I'm going to be very upset. And come on, what are you going to do about that? But, I don't know.
I was just going to say, the Buffalo situation is interesting because they are dumping so many players, and I understand that they're in a salary cap issue. I understand that, but to really dump off all these players and especially talented ones, it really is shocking because now what does Buffalo truly have now on the offensive side for Josh Allen? And you're giving away that. It's you question what their motives are and what they're going to do. Are they now going to be a player in the draft to try and get up in the top 15 to get one of these receivers? I mean, that's kind of one of those things where if you're getting rid of your stud, you need to have a plan to get another one. So is that a case?
And with both those receivers
it's definitely
being
a
gone,
possibility.
right? And with both your receivers being gone, who's your number one? Exactly. You don't have one. You don't even have a number two. But really, what ends up happening, where's their draft picks going to be? Are they going to be able to trade? Are they going to be able to get a quality player? Whatever the case is. Who knows? Maybe the USFL and the XFL, of course, they played during summer and all that stuff. Maybe they're going to find a couple of players from there. You never know. But with that fire sale going on in Buffalo, that does make you question. You had fairly deep playoff runs the last few years to maybe 500 at this point.
Yeah.
What
I mean,
before we go shooting Buffalo, let's look at the fact that Stephon Diggs has been an elite receiver on 2 playoff teams, different organizations. There's a reason that man is being shipped around. You can say he's an elite talent because he is, but there's got to be an issue in the locker room with Stephon Diggs. I even take it a step further and say he went and demanded a trade and wanted to go to Dallas. I think the Bills were like, we'll send you to Texas. You're not going to where you want to go. You're not going to Dallas. We'll give you the Texans.
But think about that, though, for a second, though. It's that look at all the moves the Texans have made since they dumped Deshaun Watson. And look what that has all turned out to be. And look at how they played last year, rookie quarterback, young talent on the offensive side. Their defense has studs. And now you get better. I mean, if there's a team that really improved themselves, it's them.
And clearly what he wanted to do is to actually go to a playoff potential team because you have a quarterback in Stroud that is probably still, he's kind of getting big his own quarterback. Cool. But now it's going to be one of those things where like, bruh, you better throw me the ball, 10 times, before half. That kind of thing. So you're going to have that in his ear. And who knows if that's going to be a negative or positive. But I don't know. We'll end up seeing how that works.
He's definitely going to a situation where he'd be an influence in that locker room. One way or the other, he's going to have an impact on that locker room. Yeah. And I guess if we see him fall off in Houston, you might know why Diggs got traded so many. I mean, twice. He's an elite receiver. You don't see elite receivers getting traded that often.
No.
But that move shocked me.
Yes, that was that. Yeah, that was the shocker. I didn't when that news came out. I was like, whoa, this is weird. Why? So,
yeah. They're just certain times when you wish you were like a fly on the wall to see where their mentality is and why they're letting certain players go and the way certain situations are. I mean, the Bears would be one of them, of course, because Are we going to take Williams? Are we going to just stick with Justin Fields? Blah, 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 blah. And if you even go to Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson, of course, was supposed to, well, you figure would have been the starter. Now there's some sort of a mini controversy there, too, because now it's like, oh, well, Justin Fields is probably going to be our starter. Russell Wilson could be our, backup, that kind of thing. I don't know. I just
Either
hope
way,
that,
the Steelers can't lose in that situation. They have the cheapest backup in the league, or they have the cheapest starter in the league. They're not losing there.
Right.
And in consideration of the stability there in Pittsburgh. I mean, the coach has been there for over 100 years. All the staffs have been there for a million years. The players tend to stay within the area and help out with team-wise and just that become a brand ambassador. That type of stability is going to be, I think, work wonders with Justin Fields, and he could conceivably end up being the player that the Bears wanted but never gave that support to. So
yeah, that's definitely gonna it's gonna, everything that's happened is shaping the draft. And I don't think anything will shape the draft for a certain team more than the fact that Aaron Donald has retired. That's going to deeply affect what the Rams do going forward.
Yep.
And they're in the prime position at 9. They're at 19, where they could slide out from Aaron Donald and pick up someone like Jared Verse. I mean, that's huge. Jared Verse is an outstanding edge rusher. He would fit nicely into that defense. I mean, it's got to be where they go, right? What's their other need?
Well, I mean, you could go with like a Gabriel Murphy, he's an edge rusher out of UCLA. I know the Bears were actually looking at him as also, and you slide one guy down to the defense, and you kind of got your corners.
Yeah, it's really going to affect. I mean, yeah, you got Latu from UCLA. One of them guys are going to go early. They're going to go in the top 10. It's going to be Verse or Latu that's going to go in the top 10. The other will fall to around 15 to 19 because there's no real need there. So that's really, really going to allow the Rams to have a good selection there at 19, especially since, like I said, it's such a deep draft. There's so many position groups that are deep talent-wise. And you got teams that are going to want to trade for that pick. There might be a team that's going to want to move up to get an interior offensive lineman because it's a thick draft for interior offensive lineman. You might see a team move up for an edge rusher, a wide receiver. We still have 5 quarterbacks that could potentially go in the first round. I mean, any one of those positions can be moved. So, I mean, the Rams are in a good spot at 19, and I think that's going to fall right into their lap. You're going to see them get a Jared Verse or a Latu on that pick. Mm-hmm. But what do you guys think of Aaron Donald retiring?
What
do you think of Aaron Donald retiring? Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? You think he waits a couple of years?
He's overrated. Way overrated.
I mean, his stats alone put him in the Hall of Fame, but I mean, is he first ballot worthy? It's the question.
I think because of the name, because of the recognition, and because of the fact, he's got excellent numbers. I think he probably would be a first rounder. A first balloter for sure, and people are just like, "Oh, that's Aaron Donald." Yeah, absolutely. I'll sign off on it.
Well, I guess the question is then. I mean, if or some of us are saying he's overrated, or some of them is questioning the first round Hall of Fame. I mean, what are the reservations? I mean, to me, I think his numbers prove he's definitely worthy. He's won Defensive Player of the Year. He's won a Super Bowl
multiple times.
Yeah.
So
I mean the dude is a beast. I mean, the dude could wreck a game. So,
but my question is, I guess, because we're in a social media age, everyone is like right now. You understand what I'm saying? So the stats and his highlights are in your face every day. So honestly, I think the fans make him a first-time Hall of Famer or first ballot Hall of Famer just on that alone, not to mention you're not having to pitch as hard as you did in the past because everyone knows what's going on. You don't have those local markets with news reporters having to pitch their guys as much because of social media. I think it's going to affect the way that we do voting going forward.
And I'll give you a perfect case in point. Patrick Willis. he's all of a sudden sneaks into the Hall of Fame, and I would not necessarily say personally. It's not like I watched every ball game that he played, nothing like that. But I understood that he did have a bit of a thing. He was always disruptive. He always did what he was supposed to do. But is that Hall of Fame worthy? Especially like on a first, second ballot? I don't personally think so. You guys are, but I just and then with Aaron Donald, of course, is the higher name recognition, the fact that you're getting double, triple teamed, and the fact that he's about 1.5 feet tall.
Well, yeah, he's definitely. I wouldn't look at Aaron Donald and say he reinvented the position like you would look at a guy like Warren Sapp who reinvented the position, but Aaron Donald's stats are significantly not significantly better, but they're better than Warren Sapp. He's got more sacks. He's got all Super Bowl. I think he's the first ballot Hall of Famer just based on the fact that we're in the social media age where everyone see it. It's in your face. It's not like it was back in the day.
And maybe he wants to go coach defensive line for his alma mater, like Warren Sapp. He didn't go to Colorado, but he is taking master's level classes as a graduate assistant, $150,000 a year graduate assistant.
I mean, Deion told him he had to go and get his diploma or get his degree, right? Ain't that what the deal was? So,
yep.
All of Deion Sanders, all of his negatives, whatever the case is, you got to appreciate the way he coaches. It is a little bit more old school. I guess the story I read was a professor emailed or called or whatever and said that the students were misbehaving and not going to class, and I guess he had a meeting and kind of laid it all on the line. So, again, a little bit more old school. Yeah. A little more old school, and I think that's probably what. And in consideration of the fact they're actually coming to Orlando this year, I think that might be a bit of an issue. Hopefully, we can actually, go get out with a 40-point victory. But I just want to play an easy team like a Florida State and stuff like that. A team that we know we're going to be. It's like a bunch of powder puffs. It'd be simple.
Right on. So, come on now. Florida State's definitely reloading this year, if you will. But anyway. So I woke up a little early this morning and I did myself a little mock draft. You guys want to dive into that and discuss the picks we got for that?
No.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. So this is the only way I could get it to work. I don't know why it's right down the center, blocking Andy out, but I did it for everyone else.
That's perfect.
So I went through and I did a draft. There were 2 trades. We'll discuss that as we get to them. With the first pick, the Bears select Caleb Williams. Everyone knew that was coming. Nothing real surprising there. While this next pick for the NFC teams, I have the Washington football team or the Washington Commanders or the formerly known as the Washington taking Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of UCLA. See a lot of drafts have them taking May. I think Jaden Daniels is the pick there because he's going to sell tickets. He's a flashy player, more so than May is. What are your thoughts on that pick?
Meh.
There are some of the talent evaluators think he's actually the best quarterback in this draft. So,
yeah, I mean his skill sets almost. Everyone calls him a running quarterback or a mobile quarterback. That's like a bad thing. But this day and age, I think you're just going to take their shelf life at best 5 years and keep recycling quarterbacks, right? I mean, that seems to be what's going forward. I mean, what else? What are the choices they have? They have Marcus Mariota right now as their starting quarterback. Drake May and Marcus Mariota don't blend very well. That's not the same skill set. That's not going to give you the ability to run the same offense.
So you're saying there's like an evolution within NFL offenses to actually have like a hybrid style quarterback that can both throw and run?
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on for some time now, right?
And what happens when you don't, get an offensive line that'll protect or a running back, that'll run and stuff like that? You eventually ship them off to Pittsburgh or Indianapolis or
I'm assuming
Tampa
that's
Bay?
what happens. Well, look at it this way: the running back life, or the life of a running back in the NFL, is what, at best 6 years.
Tell that to Adrian Peterson. I mean, he was a running back in the NFL for over 30 years.
Yeah. So anyway, so I have Washington taking Jaden Daniels. I have the Cards taking Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, I think that's the no-brainer for them, right? Giants go offensive tackle with Joe Alt from Notre Dame. That takes him off the board for the Bears at 9. The Falcons go with the edge with Latu out of UCLA. And then that gives me to the Bears. Now, this pick is going to be controversial, I guess, because the Bears do have a solid wide receiving core. But at 9, I have the Bears taking Roma Edunze, wide receiver out of Washington. I just think that gives them more versatility with their offense, especially having a wide receiver. I mean, having a quarterback like Caleb Williams, you got to put weapons around him. And I don't think an offensive line that's going to be a pocket blocking offensive line is really going to do the job. So you're going to need a quarterback that can get out on the edge and give him options to throw to. That's why I went wide receiver there. Andy, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that makes sense? Do you think they would go another road? I mean, you still have like Jackson Powers Johnson still on the board, but that's a little early for Johnson. You got Graham Barton still on the board. I think that's a little early for Graham Barton. You got Latham from Alabama, the offensive tackle on the board, and then you got Fuga, offensive tackle from Georgia or from Oregon, still on the board. I mean, are those picks you would risk? I mean, that's not really where they're valued at.
So the Bears, of course, have their needs. Obviously, you're going to need a quarterback. Cool. Unless you want to go with a Bajan, for example, then of course you're still going to need a quarterback to back him up. With all that being said, you need an offensive line. You're going to need at least one edge rusher, maybe a corner, and you know what? Let's be honest, another wide receiver, maybe 2. So the kid from Washington, and I think Williams and him must have had some sort of interaction throughout the course of their careers and stuff like that. So maybe they have some sort of a rapport, which means that they're going to have a little bit more chemistry, whatever the case is. Oh, we're both, West Coasters, that kind of thing. And it might be the tandem that's going to take you to the Super Bowl. Who knows? So, with the different players, I can see going with an offensive lineman at number 9, which I think would probably be better for the Bears, and hopefully like a Joe Alt, hopefully from maybe the kid from Georgia or Alabama. Cool. I can also see wide receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not going to be there at number 9, but you're going to have at least, I would say, 4, maybe 5 quality wide receivers that should still be available at number 9. Maybe even if it's down to 3. Even if it's down to 3, you can still pick one of those as your number 9 pick, and then after that, you can probably go with an offensive lineman. Maybe in your what do they get, the 77 pick, 3rd round, 75.
Yeah.
So,
Right
it's just one of those things where I think the Bears can actually do one of 2 things. They can either try to draft their team, they can trade their team, or they can look to free agency to possibly, because you're going to have people who are going to be coming and going all the time with all the big draft picks.
Right.
That's actually that brings up a question for you, Andy. I mean, with them at the number 9 spot, and obviously with this mock, the Roma Dunze obviously is a great talent. Do you think it was a good idea to get Keenan Allen, being his age and injury history?
Sure. I think that's going to actually be able to do 2 things. Because remember, especially when baseball and stuff like that, how you always have the one old player who you pay specifically to be that old player. Look, kid, you do it this way. Look, kid, you do it that way. And even if Keenan does not have a major output this year, which I tend to think he probably is going to actually break out a little bit, and that'll be fantastic. But he's also going to have that experience to be able to actually show the young guys that are coming in, look, this is how you do this. This is how you work out. This is how you that kind of how to be a professional.
I actually liked the trade for them getting him. I actually did, just for the simple fact that you obviously had need at receiver, but B, now you've got somebody you could theoretically complement with. And now I'm having a brain fart.
DJ Moore.
What? Yeah, DJ Moore. And you could do now. You can do more things, and that's the thing that Justin Fields really missed last year. Is you really were
targets,
receivers, receivers.
Granted,
he missed them a lot.
Yeah, he did.
Granted, but not all the time. I would probably put the onus on him. Maybe 55% of the time, because you had players. I mean, you had guys who were just out and out dropping the ball.
Yeah.
Not that would have actually made a great, huge deal, but that would have possibly given them 1, maybe 2 extra victories. You never know. But
right. Well,
and who are you going to put at number 1?
Sorry.
Are you going to have DJ Moore at number 1? You're going to have Keenan at number 2, or are you going to flippity flop? And what's that going to do to DJ Moore?
This is why I went with the Dunze there for the Bears, because you have a guy like Keenan Allen who's not gonna be healthy all season, and his speed is diminishing. But what doesn't diminish when you're that big of a receiver in the red zone? Targets, and that man's going to get you touchdowns. So you slide him in the end zone. You put him at a slot. You put him at the 2. You put your rookie wide receiver out there to take the top off of defense. And it's going to open up underneath for a guy like Keenan Allen, who's used to going over the middle, who's used to taking the big shot. So I think that's a perfect pick for the Bears. And I know a lot of Bears fans aren't going to agree with me, but I think it makes sense.
Well, that's actually one of the things that the Bears need, of course, is a receiver. You don't necessarily need a tight end, but I can certainly see them picking up another one. Because you have a Cole Kmet who's going to be able to catch the ball. And he does well blocking. Then you have the other guy who does nothing but blocking. So you're going to need maybe a hybrid in between. Or you get yourself
like an H-back.
Yeah, or like a big beefy wide receiver that can, that you could teach to block. You never know. Also, I know. I definitely think that once Williams, if it is Williams, learns the offense, and he's certainly not an idiot by any means. He's a solid player. You definitely question certain things. So if the going gets tough, are you gonna go cry to your mom again? That's one of those things.
Well, don't forget.
Go ahead.
Don't forget they also picked up DeAndre Swift, and that's a guy that, I mean, if they got him for low cost, it's worth the risk on this. And if he turns out to be anywhere near how he has played, I mean, that's another option too. I mean,
yeah.
So
sure, but you see, for example,
you're definitely building.
Well, you know how you've seen Justin Field actually grow into a player to where he wasn't necessarily aloof like a Jay Cutler, but he kept his emotions kind of in check. Do you see Caleb Williams, for example? Let's say if it is him, do you see him being able to keep his emotions in check throughout the course of the year, even if it does get a little tough, during the stretch?
Yeah.
I don't mind having a quarterback that shows his emotions at all, but when you can't control that, here's a prime example. Tom Brady gets away with it because he's proven himself, right? He gets away with throwing the tantrum on the sideline because he proved himself. He did it for years. Peyton Manning's another one, would throw tantrums on the sideline, but he got away with it because he proved himself over the years. Nobody made a big deal of it. Yeah, they made memes with Brady breaking the damn tablet or whatever, but he gets away with it because he's Tom Brady. The problem with Caleb Williams crying is the fact that he's Caleb Williams crying. If it were Tom Brady crying, they wouldn't say shit about it. But because it's an unproven commodity coming to the NFL, they're going to pick him apart.
And supposedly that's one of the things that some of the receivers were talking about was the fact that, look, kid, first off, you've never played down in professional football, NFL football. And there is going to be a speed change. So, the fastest players that that you're used to seeing, basically double that. That window that you're going to be able to throw to, you can throw it within, 3 seconds and it'll still be there. That's not going to happen in the NFL. That window is going to be, half a second kind of a thing. So when it just kind of sort of gets down to the, chip to being on the table, is he going to be able to actually control that, be able to lead the team, even with a bunch of veterans? Is he going to be able to actually lead the team into, eventual victories? Who knows, the Super Bowl? Is he going to be that kind of player? I think that's what everybody's always been, and that's one of the things that really kind of, you see everything coming out. Oh yeah, I want 150% of the team. I want this. I want that. I want this. And of course, soft political moves. He has his dad say it. So let's judge it and see how it actually plays. Oh, it landed like a thud. Yeah, I can totally understand that. But you're going to be able to actually go with a rookie and tell him, look, you're going to lead this team, but I don't know. Would you rather have a cocky attitude? Would you rather have stoic? I don't know. What would you rather have?
Like I said, let him have the opportunity to prove himself, and we'll go from there. But I mean, everyone makes mistakes. He made a mistake. Big deal. He's put his foot in his mouth. Big deal. I've done that a million times. But going forward, it's just a matter of, can you play ball, right? That's what it comes down to. You get a longer rope, the more ball you can play, the better you are, the longer your rope is. Shut up, Andy. All right. We're going to move on to the 11th pick.
What are you, David Baby? And you're walking into a situation that's actually above what you would normally walk into.
100%. 100%. Thank you, Carolina.
Yeah.
At 11, I have the Minnesota Vikings going quarterback, J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. And I just think it makes sense because he's Kirk Cousins 2.0 in my opinion. And I know that's not what they want in Minnesota right now, but he's younger, he's faster, he's more athletic. And I think he gives you that I'm a winner type mentality going into that locker room. And I think he fits there. I think they don't have to change the offense very much. I think he's smart enough to pick up what they're doing. And they got weapons there for him. So at 11, I have Minnesota taking J.J. McCarthy.
That's about what I'm reading on that. And yes, I think you're exactly right. It's a Kirk Cousins 2.0 situation. So really the offense isn't going to change besides the quarterback getting younger. Now the question's going to be though, is, are they doing this with the understanding that they are going to extend Jefferson's contract? Because look at what Minnesota has done historically as a franchise. They've never extended a player and given him the money other than at quarterback.
Well, I think they do that now because they can, right? I mean, they have the capital now because they're not extending a quarterback. I think that's why you saw Cousins get moved. I think that's why they go younger at quarterback, so they can actually keep an elite talent at wide receiver. I think they let him build that chemistry they're going to need going forward. I think it's a smart move.
Yeah.
There's a possibility, of course, reading through Bleacher Report, J.J. McCarthy to the Broncos. So,
there are a couple teams that are going to be a wild card, and I know Sean Payton's really wanting to move up in the draft. But the problem is they blew their wad to get Russell Wilson. So that's going to be, what are you going to do? You're not going to trade more just to get one player, unless you really want to handcuff your franchise for 5 years.
Well, if you have a player like a J.J. McCarthy, who and he's kind of interesting in the fact that. I think you pretty much hit on the head, is the fact that we've called Kirk Cousins like a game manager, and I think he's definitely a plus on the game manager. He does a little bit, he does intangibles, he does a little bit more than your regular game manager, but he's not going to make those big mistakes that are going to actually cost you the game. Right. And so I think that's probably where you probably definitely hit that square on the old head in the fact that McCarthy, and. Where's Jim Harbaugh? How come he's not, hey, come on down to my house? Remember the old song?
Oh, I'm sure he is, but he's further down in the draft. So, I mean, and Denver is the very next pick. And if McCarthy doesn't go to Minnesota there, I think he's going at 12. The next pick in the draft for the NFC, I have a trade, actually. It would be the first trade of the draft for an NFC team. I got the Washington Commanders trading with the Raiders, trading for the 13th pick, giving the Raiders the 36th, the 40th, and the 78th pick. They move up to take Talise Fuga, offensive tackle out of Oregon State. And again, I think they're just trying to build that offense, address the needs that they have, so they can be competitive in that into that division. I think the trade makes sense there. They're not giving up, next year's draft. They do have multiple picks in the later round, so it actually helps both organizations that way. Again, not a sexy pick, but it does give you your offensive lineman to protect the quarterback you just invested the second pick in. At 14, I got the Saints taking another offense tackle in J.C. Latham. He's probably the best. Well, I wouldn't say best, but he's definitely top 3 offensive tackles in the draft, so the pick makes sense there. And their offense was abysmal last year. So, I think they beef up the offensive line, give a guy like Derek Carr a little more time. I think that pick makes sense. Thoughts on that one? Anything?
I mean,
I really
don't follow the Saints, but I mean, it would obviously make a whole lot of sense knowing, that was a glaring problem in New Orleans was protection. So
yeah, it just made sense to me. At 16, we got Seahawks taking cornerback Quinion Mitchell. Again, Seahawks defense, it's one of their main needs is the defensive backfield. And I think he makes sense and fits that scheme well. Going to the Vikings at the next pick as they traded with the Steelers. They trade from the 23rd to the 20th pick to pick up defensive tackle Johnny Newton out of Illinois. Vikings got to do something, right? They've got to make some big impact in this draft. Right now, I have them seeded, honestly, maybe 3rd in the NFC North. You got the Bears. Like I said, the Bears build offense. They pick up Caleb Williams out of USC, Rome Odunze out of Washington to build up that offense. So you got to counteract that with defense, right? And I think that makes sense as well. It's a need. It addresses the need that they have. They've got to do something that stay relevant in that division because the Lions and the Bears are making moves. And we're not going to talk about a team that someone else chooses from that division. We're just going to let him sit on mute for a while. But your pick's coming. Your pick's coming. But where do you guys have this division ranking right now before you go further? I'm thinking at best, the Vikings are 3, if not 4.
Judging by the moves that the teams have made, I mean, obviously, I'm gonna still put the Lions 1 just because they earned it, and I feel like they're primed for another run. Green Bay surprised everybody last year, and I think they're as of right now they're 2. In my opinion, depending on the moves that they make, I like how the Bears are set up right now. I mean, defensively, I think they're pretty well solid with a defensive-minded coach that called the plays most of the year last year, and you saw the team get better defensively and won some games. I mean, obviously they blew some games. They probably should have had about 2 or 3 more victories and be in the playoffs, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think they're just right there. And like we've been talking about, get Williams, get Rome Odunze, or if they get an offensive tackle or something like that, I think they put themselves in prime position to be a 3rd, maybe, and really challenging Green Bay and Detroit. I think theoretically, if the right moves are made, this division is going to be a tough one. I mean, I do.
I think the schedule itself bodes very well for the Bears because you got a team like the Lions who aren't used to playing a first place schedule going into the next season, playing a first place schedule. You got the Bears playing middle of the road, and they've made vast improvements on that team so far, and we haven't even gotten to the draft. So, I mean,
well, not to mention the fact that now you have like tape on all of Detroit, so you're not going to be able to sneak any of those little things. And Detroit was actually winning; they were winning ugly. So you're not going to have any surprises there coming out of there, especially with the way the coaches can prepare and stuff like that. And the Bears have quite a few new players that you're still going to need to get some of that tape on. So you go to Detroit or whatever the case is, first one. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if the Bears won and then come back. When you have tape and stuff like that in Detroit, would definitely make it a little bit closer, if not pull out a victory. It'd be one of those type of things.
And you saw that what happened to Minnesota. They went from winning 1-score games to losing 1-score games, and it's that easy. I mean, it's that easy to flip the script. The next pick. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's also getting to that point now where, and granted, the old guard, the old school thought mentality is, if you want to be able to save your job in Chicago, you can go 2-14. You beat Green Bay at home. You beat Green Bay in Green Bay, and then you save your job. And I think that mentality is actually starting to kind of sort of shift a little bit to where you naturally want to see beating Green Bay. In particular, I think with Aaron, but Green Bay is still Green Bay, whatever. But now I think because of the fact that you're in the 21st century and all this other stuff, you definitely want to see a playoff run from the Bears.
Yeah.
A deep playoff.
I honestly think, like I said, how many years ago was it? 4 years ago, since we're in our 4th season, I felt the Bears were on a 5-year plan.
You did say that.
I thought that if Justin Fields was there, they'd have it. But you know what? The Bears might be in prime position now. I don't think when you draft a quarterback in the first round, he doesn't work out. It sets your franchise back, a minimum of 5 years. But the Bears kind of fell into this, right? They get the number 1 overall pick, and it happens to be someone that everyone's considering the next coming. Maybe it works out for the Bears this time. Maybe they knew something no one else did. Who knows? But I think they're still on the same trajectory as they were prior. A year out, 2 years out right now.
And so I don't necessarily think the quarterback has if by chance you had an opportunity to have a team and stability, take, for example, the 2000s and stuff like that, the Patriots, and of course Pittsburgh, and of course those teams that actually have a stability factor to where what you're going to have year. Your quarterback can grow into that particular offense, actually eventually make it his own. Little things here and there. Look at Peyton. How many times do you throw the old Omaha in there? Pause for idiots. Check.
No, you're right though. I mean,
and then of course but if you're still throwing a new quarterback, new system, new everything in, and granted, it's a different situation, but it's the same situation, exactly the same, entirely different.
Gotcha.
So,
all right. So this next pick, the pick at 22 for the Philadelphia Eagles, they've got more needs than you would realize. You just lose your all-pro center. There's definitely centers on the board. You got Grant Barton out of Duke. You got Jackson Powers-Johnson out of Oregon. But they still need offensive weapons in the skilled position. I went Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU here, and I think they need to reset and get that offense firing again. And I mean, they didn't look like the same team in the playoffs they were last year or a year prior. So
right,
you could see a secondary movement with the Philadelphia Eagles too.
Yeah, you could see them taking a guy like Nate Wiggins or like Cooper DeJean or any one of those would be available.
Lasseter from Georgia.
Yeah, they definitely like their Georgia Bulldogs there in Philly.
Yes, they do.
But But yeah, I got them taken, like I said, Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU. Great hands, good size for the NFL. I think he fits. Next pick, we're gonna go Cowboys. Cowboys at 24. This is a position that both they need and the teams behind them need. I got them going cornerback Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. 6'2". He's kind of slight in build, but he's a tall, ball hawking defensive back, and I think he would fit well in their defense. They're obviously not doing anything on offense. They got to start building on defense, right? I mean, where else do you see him going there?
Wide receiver.
They could go wide receiver, but they're not going to have a quarterback next year.
I was going to say they could go with a quarterback, an actual quarterback this year.
But yes, I have like I said, Nate Wiggins. I did a piece on him about 2 weeks ago going to the Bucs. I think he'd be a great fit for the Bucs secondary. He's real tall, fits that type of scheme. So yeah, it just makes sense to me that they go there. Next up, we got the Pack. Brian, I think you'll like where I got the Green Bay Packers going. I got them going with the kid out of Iowa.
Yes.
Cooper DeJean, safety out of Iowa. Yeah, he's just – I don't know. I like him. I don't think there's anything you could say bad about the kid.
No, that's, and I'm glad when you did this mock, because this actually fits real perfectly with what I've read, because this is something the Packers need. It's a big need for them. Defensively, I mean, they're switching to a 4-3, first of all, obviously with the new defensive coordinator. You've gotten rid of some guys, and you need to lock down receivers. This is a guy that's got a lot of upside. I mean, he got hurt at the end of the year last year. I think it was like a broken fibula or something like that. Right. But I mean, you look at what he's done, and just as his accolades from college, becoming from a Big Ten school, I mean, he's could be legit. He's got a lot of upside. I think this would be a really great pick where they're at. I mean, are there other options that the Packers need? Yeah, they need an offensive tackle. They need a linebacker help. They need inside offensive line, or interior offensive line, and then defensive end is another one too. But I think at this stage, I think trying to get a corner right now as their first pick is something they really need. And I think this would be a good pick.
Go ahead, Andy. Before I go.
Oh yeah, we got to go with Kool-Aid.
You'd rather go Kool-Aid McKinstry there? I don't know if he'd be available. But yeah,
that is true. Also, the kid from Iowa, he's used to playing in that inclement weather. He's used to that kind of stuff. Cool, but you got to get the Kool-Aid.
What I like about Cooper is his versatility. He's played free. He's played strong. He's played corner. He gives the option to go inside and play nickel corner. He's not great man-to-man, but he doesn't hurt you in man coverage. He's an outstanding zone corner, better safety. I think he's a good choice there. I think it gives you versatility along your defensive backfield. And he's a leader of the locker room. If you've seen the interviews with his coaches, they say he has a great presence in the locker room. I think that's important, especially going to a team like Green Bay.
Yes, and I like I said, I mean with the needs that they have, most of their needs are defensive, and just because that was the fatal flaw with that team is they could not close games when the offense was playing well. The offense literally had to put up 30, 40 points.
Right.
And you can't win track meets every week. So this is I think a good route to take. I mean, they do have the most picks in this year's draft. They've got 11. So right. And there's always the possibility of, like we've talked about, there could be the trades, there could be teams that are eyeing things. And I honestly think in this draft especially, I do think there's going to be a lot of movement in terms of trades. I really do see it. If it was as crazy as it was with the free agency, I think we could get that kind of crazy in the draft.
Yeah, I try to keep this draft as realistic as I could. Every time you go to make a draft pick in these these draft simulators, you get trade requests or trade offers. But I try to keep it as realistic as I could with the trades. I only had 2 for the NFC, but honestly, there's possibility for numerous trades going in this draft.
I think a lot of GMs are going to go by conviction in this draft, because if they really are keying on one person that they really want, and as deep as this draft is, there could be GMs that are just saying, look, I really want this guy and I'm not going to wait for him,
right.
And make the move.
100%.
Well, yeah, but you don't have the same situation with Chicago several years ago with a fellow out of North Carolina. I think they actually traded him to Pittsburgh also.
I think we're talking about the Maserati, but anyway,
well, that was also one of the dumbest GMs ever. So I mean,
yeah. With the 26th pick, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. He's quite possibly the most versatile offensive lineman in the draft. He plays both guard and center, both sides as guard. I do see the Bucs being a team that could possibly trade up into this draft so they can get the lineman that they need or that they want, or the actual pick that they desire, because they have multiple needs. But I honestly think Jackson Powers Johnson, if he's there, is the pick. The only other player I would take over him, if it's there, would be someone like Jared Verse, who I think is one of the major needs of the Bucs, is the edge. So, but yeah, I like Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon to play center for the Bucs for the next 7 years.
Sure, but how about Mims from Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, there's.
Granted, you do. He's a very specific player. He's definitely an offensive tackle, because big, fast, strong, good legs, good hands. I mean, he could be somebody that you possibly be able to build off of. And granted, I don't necessarily think your guy is going to be there because of the fact he can play 3 separate positions. So I don't necessarily think. I don't even really think that Mims will actually be there. Is he the greatest offensive tackle? No. He does tend to get extended from time to time, and if you have a speed power rusher, you can actually get beat pretty quickly. But I just think that Mims would probably be a little bit better fit.
Yeah, I could see that being a possibility, but if they go another lineman and it's not Jackson Powers Johnson, I think it's Graham Barton out of Duke, but I have him going later in the draft. But yeah, that definitely a possibility. They could also go Chop Robinson edge, but I have him going to the next pick to the Cardinals at 27. Again, building defensively. Good edge rusher out of Penn State. Has that ceiling, right? He's got a real high ceiling. Kind of reminds me of Joe Tryon-Shoyinka out of Tampa Bay. I just don't know if he'll reach that ceiling, and that's why I think he falls in the draft. He doesn't seem to have a counter move. But I have him going, like I said, to Arizona. At 29, I have the Lions taking a wide receiver out of Florida State, Keon Coleman. And I think he falls this far in the draft because of his poor 40 time. If he had a better combine, I think he'd be a higher pick. I think he'd be up in the top 15, top 20. But I think you're giving the Lions another offensive weapon in Keon Coleman. What do you guys think on that pick? I mean, it's pretty far fall for Coleman, but I think 29 is around where he's going to be.
Yeah, and like I said, I think in those scenarios where the combine they don't look good at, and then they fall. Sometimes that's a good thing, because like a team like the Lions, where they could use another weapon, that just falls perfectly in their lap. They don't have to look at trading up and trying to, giving draft capital to get, like I said, if a GM has conviction on a player, they don't have to trade up in this scenario. It falls in their lap. They keep their draft capital. They get the player they want, and then they go out and play. And just, I think that's a pretty much a fair assessment to where he would fall. So,
right on. Andy, you got anything on that one?
You see, well, to go back to Detroit, to talk about Detroit, I mean, do you really see like a Cooper DeJean actually falling to Detroit at 29? Because with the defensive scheme that you're looking at and with the defense that you're actually looking at Iowa, there's a whole lot of similarities there.
Yeah. And it would make sense for them to take a defensive player, especially with the mindset of that team. Well, I got an offensive coach and Dan Campbell, but man, does he take on the genre of a defensive-minded coach where he's aggressive and isn't afraid to put his defense out there in, I don't want to say bad situations, but when it's 4th and 3 and you're on your own 28-yard line and you're going for it, you're putting them in a situation where either they got to make the player, they got to make the stop defensively. So he seems like the kind of coach that would take that kind of player.
Sure, but now you're showing confidence in your team.
I agree.
Yeah, no problem.
100%. Both sides of the ball, you're showing confidence in the team.
Yeah. And I just think that if Detroit actually were to actually go up, or again, if Cooper DeJean is actually there, that would actually be probably a better fit.
Yeah.
And he's still basically in the Midwest, so kind of a hometown feel.
And the last pick of the NFC for the draft is going to be your San Francisco 49ers. I had them going offensive line, taking the best offensive lineman left on the board, and Graham Barton out of Duke. Again, great offensive lineman, plays both guard positions and center, gives you the versatility. Would he start in San Francisco? I can't say that for sure, but I definitely know he would give them depth. Could be a starter within 2 years, 3 years tops. That's going to find out or close out the draft, but
you're going to look at that, if anything, an offensive tackle, right offensive tackle, interior, because who you got on the left side? You got some guy, some mediocre player.
Yeah, that guy.
That's been the Pro Bowl a couple times. But anyway, you take Williams out and stuff like that, and Trent out, and you still have, for example, Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle from Arizona. So quick, athletic, decent size. And I think he would actually, especially considering, with the run game that San Francisco has, I think he'll probably end up being a little bit gooder than what your guys. Okay, cool, fantastic. However, I just think Arizona, I think is actually probably as good, if not better, a pick for that situation.
Yeah,
that's fair. I mean, like I said, that's why we're doing this, so we can debate it and discuss it. And I could definitely go with that.
Yeah, the only other thing that I would think about the Niners really needing, besides offensive line help, would be secondary help.
Yeah,
because there was a glaring hole. If you watch the games that especially in the playoffs, you could pass the ball on them. I mean, their run defense was always stout, but the thing is, you could throw the ball on them,
right?
And I think that's if they're really trying to seal the deal for another Super Bowl run. I really think defensively they really need to address the holes in the secondary. Otherwise I think offensive line would be another, in my opinion, another need too. But I mean, you do have an aging Trent Williams. I mean, you do need to figure that out. So,
agreed. Well, gentlemen, I think our time has come to an end on this week's show. That was fun. I appreciate the input. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to put all this up on our Facebook page so we can actually get some interaction from people on it as well. You guys got any closing thoughts for today?
Oh yeah.
I hope Stout is actually doing his homework.
Yeah, his son actually didn't have a game yesterday. He just didn't do what he was supposed to do. So he's like, I can't come. All right, guys. We'll see you again.
All right.